You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show. They are starting on me already in the background. You wouldn't believe what I go through on a weekly basis over here. As you know, I am Kerry Greenaway. We are joined by Mr. Mark Manley in the studio. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, dear viewers.
Oh, we've got an island tonight. What are we doing over in Ireland?
Oh, Jesus, I just thought I'd pop in and say hello there.
And we also have
many different characters, including El Doggo.
We have an interloper. Mr. Paul Rook has joined us in the studio tonight.
Good evening.
I'm sure I've heard you on tonight already.
You have, yeah. I just stayed on in the studio.
He's not an
I just hid under the desk.
You just hid under the desk and then popped out at the last minute. Okay.
That's it.
He's not an interloper.
An interloper?
Hello?
Hello?
No, he's not an interloper. He's not an interloper, he's a cross-dresser.
You really do, your mind, it's really weird. I don't always get it, I'll be honest.
So you don't remember the hotel?
It was normal.
I prefer being an interlope. What are we talking about?
Oh, just your cross-dressing habit, Paul, that's all.
What? What's he talking about? What, when we went to Somerset?
I have no idea.
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just yeah, I am. I'm just taking a Vic.
Oh, I was
Remember
going to say, did I miss something? I know I'd had wine or two, but I didn't remember him dressing up in women's clothing.
That wasn't me. That was actually Kerry in the morning.
Yeah, and there was a small Romanian homeless person sat on the floor with blankets wrapped around them asking for food. So,
I remember that one. Anyway, let's get this show on the road rather than talking about past experiences that we've shared on investigations. Okay, our chat room is filling up nicely, so let's give people a bit of a shout out. We have got CJ Simmons in the chat room. We have Mr. James Steele. We have the lovely Kaz Rooney, who's actually watching football at the moment. Oh, God. We have Mr. Ashley Nibb. We have Mr. Jason Forster and Mr. David Cook. Oh, gosh. Andy Mercer's come in. We were talking about cross-dressing and now he's going back to the football. Probably for the best, Andy. We're talking crisis apparitions tonight.
And that's not the thing. That's not when you get a ghost of a chance if you pee yourself. So yeah.
Okay, well, this is where we start looking at the differences between a ghost and an apparition. Can anyone define the differences for me?
Well, I thought you might like to do that because you're very good at talking.
Are we sure we don't want to do that?
Ghosts go ooh. Crisis apparitions go ah.
No, an apparition tends to be of a person you know, so somebody close to you, somebody family, friends, that sort of thing. Whereas a ghost is generally defined as somebody that you don't know. There you go.
And has Scooby-Doo and the gang chasing after it.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? Scooby-Doo van is still across the road from my house, by the way, everybody. I'd just like to point that out.
I did let them borrow it. To be honest, I did tell Scooby to come back with El Doggo, and I wanted it in the same as it went out.
So my mind went off on a tangent at El Doggo. Anyway, so
El Doggo is Taylor's. Pat is Taylor's pug's alter ego.
oh, okay.
He sounds like Pat from Shrek.
Anyway, let's get back on topic. What's a crisis apparition, Mark?
A crisis apparition. People who basically somebody appears at the who's undergoing trauma or severe illness or injury or even death, and basically appears. The main one is when they appear at the time of death, or major startle. Oh my God! And they zap to somewhere else and someone sees them briefly. I've read loads of stories about that happening, especially First World War and Second World War and stuff like that. Or crisis apparition could be like, I'll give you an example, when somebody got gassed and they reappeared in the home, and that happened a few months ago when we were down at Kerry's and Kerry let one go in the kitchen and I had
Oh
a
my
crisis
God,
apparition.
no, let's not be like that tonight, Mr. Mark Manley. Oh my God, I am so going to sack that man. I have another boss on with me tonight, Mr. Paul Rook. Paul Rook, what do we think? Should we sack him?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
I don't get bloody paid.
Okay, so is this then an actual out of body? So, like you're astral travelling, do we think, this kind of thing? Or is it a telepathic imprintation, interaction thing?
Projection. It's got to be an astral projection, forced on by the trauma. Yeah, makes sense. And as I said, when I was defining both the ghost and the apparition, I was right then, wasn't I? Because a ghost would go ooh, and then the apparition would go ah.
Basically,
yeah. So I was right.
You've got. I mean, when you work out that astral travelling is using. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how the show's going. When you think it's any, please don't make noises like that, Kerry, because you'll get the viewers wondering.
I'm just good what I say.
Jesus Christ. Guys, come on, we've only just started the show. We normally get halfway through before we go stupid.
I personally, I don't think it's aliens or anything like that, but I do think that it's astral travelling purely based on the fact that it's energy, and an energy that makes the crisis happen is going to be enough to push you out of your body to do your crisis apparition and then zap back again, even though you don't remember it. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I could go with that.
It always seems to happen. A crisis apparition always happens at a time of high trauma, doesn't it? So someone's either incredibly ill or they're having an experience that puts them at that point of, oh my God, I'm going to die kind of moment.
Well, yeah, exactly. And like I say, when you read a lot of the reports and history on it and stuff, it's a lot of it's to do with war and stuff like that.
Well, there's been plenty of cases in this.
Putting another spin on it, when someone is having this traumatic experience and they say that their life flashes before their eyes.
Yeah.
Is it actually the life flashing before their eyes, or are they actually there in spirit? And
that's a good one.
That's a philosophical question, isn't it?
Is that where their soul is astral projecting? There you go. Have a think on that one.
Well, in the records of parapsychology and physical research, cyclical research even, sorry, I always read it as physical. Anyway, there are also accounts of experimental cases in which individuals have deliberately attempted to make their apparition, their ghostly image, appear to a particular witness, as in efforts to project one's spiritual essence during an out-of-body experience. Did you know that, guys?
Well,
we do now.
Yeah.
Did
it work?
See, I would go on the thought of, to be fair, when I was looking at these, we have got some cases for you that we're going to dissect in pure dark mirror fashion. I do go into the realms of, this is, if you're that ill or whatever, at that point, the one thing you would want to do is be with a loved one, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and as I said, energy. If it's that bad, and that because it doesn't matter whether you're ill or not. Death is a big thing, and it's a form of energy. So you're going to be able to use that to zap to where you want to be the most.
I just want to address a question in the chat room. Andy Mercer, is there a soul apart from on his shoe? Yes, there is.
Yes,
There's a fish called a soul, and a wonderful fish are souls. Remember that.
Did you say our souls?
That's what I just thought you said.
No, it's the name of the song. It's a wonderful fish are souls.
There's soul in Korea as well.
Yeah, see, so there you go, Andy. There are souls.
Oh my God. Did you really expect a sensible answer to that, Andy M, is all I'm saying? Did you really expect a sensible answer for that? Why am I doing a sensible topic with these pair? Why? I asked the universe this. Why?
Hey, Mrs. I didn't bring up arseholes, he did.
I know. Oh my God.
No, I didn't say nothing about arseholes. I just said there is a wonderful fish, arseholes.
Oh my God.
And there are fish.
Right, I'm just going to go for a cruise around the internet now. I think carry on, lads. Clearly you've got this subject under wraps. Let's carry on.
Andy said it's carry on.
So we have established the difference between ghosts and apparitions. We've established what the crisis apparition is allegedly supposed to be. Now, okay. So, have we ever experienced a crisis apparition?
What, personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't, no.
No, I haven't either.
No. I strongly suspect the cat might have, because about 3 o'clock in the morning it jumps around the room like something's scaring it. That's about it.
That's you get up to the ghost door.
That's
probably when I got up to
just
go to
do
the loo
that,
and it
though,
went,
don't
oh my
they?
God.
Okay, well, we have found some examples, being as none of us have an personal experience of this. We have gone away and we have actually found some examples for you. So, Mark, would you like to read the first one?
Yes, we did, didn't we?
It's the royal we. It's the royal we.
Do you want me to do Nina? Do you want me to do? Oof, Nina DeSanto?
Go and do Nina.
All right, the one... Do you know what? You try and do it normally, and when you stop saying all the rude stuff and dodgy things, Kerry comes out.
I don't even mean to.
Last week it was, what was it, fisting?
No, don't even. No. Go and do Nina.
These are actually documented cases that you can find on the internet, so let's go with this one. Right. Nina DeSanto was about to close her New Jersey hair salon one winter's night when she saw him standing outside the shop's glass front door.
That's ominous. Straight away, him. She just saw him. Sounds like a bad romance novel start, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
It's a sequel to 50 Shades of Grey.
And she just saw him standing outside her hair salon. Actually, maybe I should read this.
Oh, dear God.
Carry on. I'm sorry. Carry on.
Well, it's so not Mark standing outside the hair salon, is it?
Just for our delicate viewers, there may be some swearing coming up. Yes, Paul, don't fuck yourself.
Oh, what do you mean coming up? I think we've already done some swearing.
Taking the mickey out of my lacquered hair.
Oh, okay. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, well, standing outside her Weight Watchers shop, it was Michael.
It was Michael. He was a soft-spoken customer who had been going through a brutal patch in his life. I'm so sorry. It has to be done in this voice.
She's turning it into a fucking LA noir. Reading it.
His wife had divorced him after having an affair with his stepbrother. I know we need music behind this. And he had lost custody of his boy and girl in the ensuing battle. He was emotionally shattered. But DeSanto had tried to help. She'd listened to his problems, given him pep talks, taken him out for drinks. When DeSanto opened the door that Saturday night, Michael was smiling.
Oh,
Nina, I can't stay long, he said, pausing in the doorway. I just wanted to stop. I can't carry on, I'm sorry. I just wanted to stop by and say thank you for everything. Oh, God. Bless her. I mean, this is a case. We're taking the mic, but bless her, you know. Anyway, I'm going to go serious now because it gets a bit more serious. They chatted a bit more before Michael left and DeSanto went home. On the Sunday, she received a strange call from a salon employee. Michael's body had been found the previous morning, at least 9 hours before she talked to him at her shop. He committed suicide. It's a bit sad, really,
now,
that love
as
story.
conversation starters, that's a pretty much a bummer, that one.
Well, I thought it went rather well until we got to the bit where he committed suicide, quite frankly. Oh, dear. I mean, having said that, right, 9 hours. There's a gap there. So we're talking crisis apparitions, not just pre, but after as well, aren't we?
Well, yeah, exactly. It does seem to me like because of all the stuff that she pulled him through, you know, I reckon that's why he wanted to be there. He just, well, you see it yourself, he said to say thank you. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, that is the first episode from Kerry's 50 Shades of Grey, which will be coming out soon.
Meals and Booze X-rated has gone into the chat room. I really need to read 50 Shades in that voice, don't I? But we have got this period of time. We have got a period of time just before people having apparitions and people appearing to them just before or in a short time span pre-death or pre-death experience. Yeah, because there have been cases where somebody has like thought they were going to die but didn't and appeared. And we have cases where after death they appear.
Tell me something. I've got a question to throw out there. And this isn't speaking ill of the dead or anything. It's purely a random question. Stephen Hawking passed away. If he did unfortunately, and if he did a crisis apparition, would he appear or would his chair appear with him? Would he just be floating there? Or would he be able to, do you know what I mean? Would he be able to hang about or would he be able to talk or what?
He'd come across as he was in life. So
before his disease.
He would. Well, I don't know. I think he'd come across as a familiar shape, for example. So he's going to be in his wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, if he came in all walking, talking perfectly normally, then surely that would lead to doubt in the person he's appeared to's brain that that's not really him. Whereas if you appear as
especially
you were,
especially if they didn't know him, when he was up and walking and whatever, then they're going to dispute whether that was him. It stands to reason that he comes across as he was when they knew him.
Because
mediums say that. Oh, let me just pour my little Friday tipple. Mediums,
I have never seen a glass that big.
It's a pint glass. No, mediums say that when they first come through, when a spirit first comes through to them, they'll appear as in a recognisable form to the person that they're reading for, but then generally what they'll do is they'll transfigure into where they were happiest. So if they were happiest in their 40s, they'll sort of like go back to how they looked in their 40s, but initially they'll appear recognisable to the person they're reading to.
So you've just said something.
I asked a similar sort of question the other day in a private conversation. I said that now he's passed, if he was to communicate with us, would he communicate in his own voice?
It's a really interesting question, isn't it? Actually, that's if you think about it, that's actually quite an interesting one. Would he?
If he acted through a medium, the medium can't start sounding like Simon Says or anything like that. But
maybe he wouldn't actually be speaking. We've also, when we talked about dream visitation the other night, we were looking at cases, and although they're incredibly vivid, one of the factors was the awareness that they weren't like using their mouth to speak. It was almost like a telepathic conversation. Okay. So I would imagine if he was to come back in those circumstances, it wouldn't actually be him sitting there using the electronic voice mechanism he used in life. It would be almost, oh gosh, if you're clever enough as a spirit to come back and do that, then a little bit of telepathic interaction ain't going to hurt, is it?
Well, to be honest, you're so
know,
clever. I could see him doing it.
I just know there's different types of mediums, and some mediums can communicate, like as you said, telepathically with like images in their head. But then there's other spirits. There's other mediums that can actually physically hear spirit. And do you know what I mean? So there's like different types of medium. So if Stephen Hawking, for example, was to go to a medium that could speak to spirit, would he speak with his own voice?
Mm.
You know, and it was quite an interesting subject.
I would say it would be recognisable that that's who you were speaking to. So whether or not he would be projecting that telepathically, even down to the electronic intonations in the voice, so it is a recognisable thing, I would say, yeah, that's probably how he would come through, because then you can go, oh my God, there ain't no doubt who I've got. You know what I mean? Because if it came through any other way... If it came through any other way on a spiritual connection, or even a apparition, if it came through any other way, how doubtful would that be when 9 times out of 10 these apparitions are appearing purely and simply to basically say, thank you, I'm okay, everything's okay now.
Yeah. And he could actually prove his theories now.
Could you imagine it?
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
How amazing would that be? But would we believe it?
Probably not.
See, I mean, one of my personal things is when you pass, if you've got things wrong with you in life, because at the end of the day, you've got to remember that your body is literally just a vehicle for you to drive.
Yeah.
And that when that body's gone and you go on, you're not muddled anymore. It's the same as when Damien passed away. I've always said he's not muddled anymore because, he had a few mental health issues. That's not good. Nobody has it. Me, disabled, when I go and come back and haunt the living daylights out of everybody, including Kerry and Paul, I will have 2 hands and 2 legs.
Yeah.
So, I've always thought,
But if you appeared to us,
well.
if you wanted to prove to us that there was life after life, effectively,
I would do. Yeah.
You would appear, however you appeared, you would appear in a form that we would recognise. That is us knowing you as you are in this form.
Exactly.
And
that's how I do it.
Turning up as Cousin It wouldn't...
How the hell can I appear as Cousin It with my hair?
Now, I want to bring this point up because we've touched on it, right? Okay, so would you, this is from Ashley in the chat room, would you be hearing and seeing him physically in front of you? Yeah, which apparitions do tend to appear... So you see them, you actually see that physical physical representation, should we say, in front of you, and hearing that, or would it be a telepathic interaction? So although you believe what you're seeing is in front of you, is it actually that strongly imprinted within your mind from a telepathic link so you can receive the other information, or is
this was sort of the conversation we was having at the time, because I wanted to know whether or not, with mediums, and they say they can actually physically hear spirit, do they actually hear someone as if they're standing next to them, or is it, like when you have a discussion in your own mind about a decision you need to make, and sometimes you can hear your own thoughts and your own words, or is it that sort of hearing that they could? That was sort of the discussion we was having.
No, I'll tell you how it is for me. If I hear something from what I understand as an external source, I don't hear it with my ears. I hear it in my head. Yeah,
right.
But it's not my voice. I know my voice. I know it very well. You know what I mean? Believe it or not. But when I hear a man's voice in my head, that's not me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's still in your head, so...
But it's in my head.
Yeah.
It's not, my ear is picking up an external acoustic sound wave that's bouncing on my eardrum and then doing its physical
that's pretty
thing.
much what I wanted to know. Yeah.
To put too fine a point on it, do you want me to read out a recorded historical case in the First World War, and it says about what they look like and what they're wearing and everything?
Go for it. Are you going to do it in a sexy voice like I did?
Well, to be honest, it's First World War, and it was the start of the Army Air Force, so they're probably talking like that. But
Okay, let's do it in that accent then, darling.
Right. Okay. Right. Now, here we go. Now, this is coming from the case files of True Paranormal, but this is also on other places as well. But I'm just going to quote True Paranormal for tonight. It's the case of Lieutenant McConnell, World War I crisis apparition. Lieutenant David McConnell was a British pilot trainee on the morning of December the 7th, 1918, when his commanding officer ordered him to fly an airplane from Scampton to Tadcaster, approximately 60 miles away. A pilot and another plane accompanied him and would do so on the return flight. At 11:30 a.m., McDonnell told his roommate, Lieutenant Larkin, about the flight. The pilots ran into heavy fog on the way to Tadcaster. After they landed, McConnell contacted his home base for instructions. He was told to use his own discretion. So both pilots flew towards Scampton. The other pilot made a forced landing due to increasing fog, but McConnell continued his flight. He unfortunately was killed when his plane crashed. His watch stopped exactly at 3:25 p.m. They obviously found the watch on him. At the same time, Larkin, who was reading in their room, heard McConnell's cheery greeting and saw him in the room's doorway, attired in his flying uniform, wearing his naval cap instead of a helmet because he had served in the Naval Air Service. Larkin said, "Back already?" The apparition said, "Cheerio!" and then left and shut the door. About 30 minutes later, Lieutenant Garner Smith told Larkin he hoped McConnell would return soon so they could go out, and Larkin replied that he had returned. Later that evening, Larkin learned that McConnell died at the same time he saw the apparition, which was 3:25 p.m. And this was confirmed by Garner Smith. So there you go.
So he appeared, right, in a different uniform to the one he was wearing when he died?
He was the only person who flew in the Navy planes, so he was the only one out of their squadron that wore a naval cap.
So he was wearing a naval cap rather than flying squad cap thing?
Yeah.
And that's how he appeared?
Yeah. And he went,
wow.
"Cheerio!"
Cheerio? I mean, that's short and sweet, isn't it? Cheerio!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's quite a good one, I think.
I do know that, I mean, oh, God, it's a really strange one, isn't it, crisis apparition? I find it quite, because you're living, a lot of the time you're still alive before, and then you do this, and then, or, some people do this, should I say.
Schrodinger's cat. That's what it is.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, God, don't bring Mr. Cat into it.
I've got one to throw out to you two and to the chat room. Okay. Now, for the people, for the people that have crisis apparitions and they don't die, is that akin to a doppelganger?
It's not a doppelganger. That's a different thing completely. We done a show on that.
No, that's when
sorry.
you see it.
No, I'm sorry, Mark. Right, we can't answer that. You'll have to read my book.
Yeah, Mark, he's going to write a book on doppelgangers.
I'll need something to read in the toilet.
You'll be in a...
Yeah, it won't take you long, trust me.
No, you know what I mean? The same... Oh,
no, because a doppelganger is not crisis apparition. There's a difference. They tend to appear. I don't know, Andy M. We'll be bringing infinite monkeys into the situation in a minute. Trust me. Where was I? Crisis apparition is different because it happens under an extreme emotional set of circumstances, whereas a doppelganger, a case is generally where it's not. They just appear elsewhere. Do you know what I mean? Or somebody else seems to be exactly the same as you, living a completely different set of circumstances, but people know you. I mean, I've had a situation of a doppelganger, poor person, whoever that was, on the train coming home from work one day. This is doppelganging, not crisis apparitioning. And,
what ganging?
Doppelganging.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And I was going home on the train and someone came up to me and I didn't know who she was. She's like, "Oh, Kerry, hi, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm fine, thank you." A bit freaked out that I was like, "Who the hell are you?" And she was like, great night last night. Oh my God, we were like, it was so banging in the club. And I'm like, I wasn't actually out last night for once. And she was like, no, you were. You was in the, we was in Basildon. I never used to go out in Basildon at the time. And I was like, no, I don't go
don't
out.
blame you.
I don't ever go out in Basildon. And she was like, no, we were in the club. I was with you. We were all night. We had a really great night. And I was like, I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are. And she told me things about myself that I had no idea. Well, no, I knew I had no idea how she knew that because I didn't know her, if you know what I mean.
You was that wasted.
I wasn't
Yeah, I was
that
about to
wasted.
say
I was
that.
actually inside. I was actually at home that particular night, for once. I know it was like a rare occasion I was in, but that's why it was so weird, because I was actually at home. So that's what I would sort of say is a doppelganger. Unless I'd astral travelled to a club and had a great night, who knows? So is it astral travelling? Is it where your soul, consciousness, whatever you want to class it as, leaves your body and goes and visits a loved one pre-death to sort of say, shit, this is happening? Or is it... See, we could get into like entanglements with this as well, couldn't we?
There's also, with the crisis apparitions, there's known cases and documented cases, especially in the First World War, of people helping like brothers out who are in imminent danger of death. Which
Brothers
I've
in
actually
arms.
I've got a story for you.
Go on, tell us that story. I do love a helping ghost apparition.
Right.
Apparition ghost.
Right, Corporal Will Bird's moving description of the night his brother's ghost saved him from certain death. Corporal Bird, who had a post-war career as a Nova Scotia journalist and published his war memoirs under the title Ghosts Have Warm Hands, had
Really?
written about a night after the 1917 Battle of Vimy Ridge, when he was suddenly stirred from a deep slumber under the tarpaulin he'd been sharing with two fellow soldiers near the front line. Before dawn, warm hands shook him, Cook recounts. Wiping away sleep, he looked with amazement at his brother Steve, who had been reported missing in action since 1915. Steve led him through some ruins when he suddenly rounded a corner and disappeared. Corporal Bird settled for sleep in a new location, dismissed his brother's ghostly appearance as a hallucination, but in the morning he was stunned to learn that the other two soldiers under the tarpaulin had suffered a direct hit from a high explosive shell and were dismembered beyond all recognition.
Wow.
So, there's quite a few from the First World War.
I think under those kind of circumstances, the mental strain is incredible. I don't think anybody who hasn't been in those kind of circumstances can fully understand the mental pressure that you're under. And your sensory pressure as well. So, if you're looking at it from that perspective, psychologically, could it be an internal intuition that is conjuring up these images to explain something to yourself mentally, rather than it being a apparition or a ghost?
It could also be a dream as well.
A lucid dream.
It could be. Or a dream visitation. So we talked about that the other night. Last night.
Yeah.
See, that I think happens sometimes. So yeah, definitely it could have been that. What do you guys in the chat room think?
Tapping
Well,
your
they're still
fingers.
talking
Come on,
about
chat room.
Australian
Well, no, because I'll be honest with you, I don't see the relevance of those experiments in this particular instance either. But it's very difficult to judge something when you're looking at an emotional state of what exactly happens under those circumstances. How can you can't test that, because you don't know when it's going to happen. And we was talking about this in regards to dream visitation. Kaz was saying how interesting it would be if we could sort of like test the brainwaves when it happens. Said, yeah, but you never know when it's going to happen. It's not like it happens regular, is it? So it is very difficult to pin it down and do, like experiments or stuff like that on this, including things like crisis apparitions, because they're so spontaneous and they're under extreme sets of circumstances. There's no way you're going to be able to pin that down and get relevant data to back up any argument on that. You can only look at it from a set of what we know in regards to psychology, in regards to the pressures on the mind and the physicalities at the time, or of the person that was going through that experience and the person that was receiving that experience. I mean, a lot of times with crisis apparitions, they don't know, they're not aware of the circumstances the other person is in. I mean, look at Nina, bless her. She was happily working away. Although she'd helped him, he probably wasn't really on her mind. And then he appears to her and says, like, you know, thank you, thanks ever so much, blah, blah, disappears off. And then she finds out he passed. Do you know what I mean? So she's not in a particularly... her mindset isn't like focused on him, is it? She's just getting on with her day, and then it's happened for her. For him, at his pre or post point of death, when you know, depending on timings and stuff like that, because the timings weren't very clear on that. She reckons it happened pre, doesn't she? That's where it becomes interesting. His mental mindset is obviously in a completely traumatic state because he's committing suicide. You know, he's thinking of taking his own life. And details are obviously very, as Ashley has just said, incredibly vague on this because it's memory. People are reciting things from memory. So you can't sit and go, well, that exactly happened at... When he first appeared, it was at like 9:23, for example. And then he disappeared at 9:37, for example. And then... you can then look at points of, you know, time of death, which is still not accurate to the minute, is it? You know what? Can you see what I mean? You can see what I'm trying to say here. It's a little vague. It's a little flimsy.
I've got another one for you, right? Crisis apparitions, a lot of them are things that appear at the time of death or just before death, as has been pointed out with that case of Nina. So I've got one conundrum for you, and we have dealt with it before, but... is a banshee a form of crisis apparition? No,
it's a form of folklore.
But it appears before warn of a death.
No, I understand where you're going with that thought, but it's a folklore. Because if you look at the true definition of apparition, she'll appear to anybody. She won't.
No, it's
she's a forewarning. No, she is a forewarning of death in a family, isn't she?
Yeah, she's a family member.
But a banshee in itself is not a family member that's coming to scream outside. It's a folklore thing.
I wonder if you could
push... That is pure
push...
folklore.
A
really good subject, though.
I wonder if you could push someone's mind to the point where they can create a one of these apparitions.
That's just abuse, Paul.
No, it's not. You see Darren Brandy all the time on the TV. I mean, his latest. Have you seen his latest experiment? His latest experiment is to see whether Darren Brown.
Oh gosh. Okay, I've had yes.
His latest experiment is to see whether or not you can push someone to commit murder.
Great.
So I mean,
no, that is mind manipulation. That's mind manipulation. And also, I would just like to say, this got pointed out to me the other day. I was talking on that very person. He's a showman. He's very clever, very good at psychology, very good at reading body language, really good at manipulation. And he's very good at hypnotism and mesmerisation. He's very good at those sort of things. And it is a show.
I get that, but he actually convinced two people to commit murder because they actually believed that they were pushing someone off the roof. Okay, now using the same sort of techniques, could they actually push someone's mind so much that they think that they're in such fear for their life that they're going to die, thus creating a trauma apparition?
Like a crisis apparition.
You can push someone till their mind snaps because it's well-known techniques used in certain parts of the military. And by the way, just because I've just been noticing the comments by a couple of people in the chat room, I was merely saying about the banshee. I'm not thick or stupid or anything. It was just the bit about the death and the family member appearing.
And Ashley has actually just backed you up on that point.
That's all I was saying. No, I was just looking at some of the things that Andy's been saying.
No, it's a valid point.
It's literally just,
Andy just likes to come in and wind you up, Mark. He does it to
Yes,
me
he's
too.
very good at
He
it.
does it on the Paramania
Very.
show to me, so don't you worry about that.
very good.
Oh dear. I think yes, you could. I don't think it's ethical, but I mean, look at how narcissists act. When we talk about narcissists, you can influence how somebody thinks. We know that. It's a well-known fact, isn't it?
Mm.
You know, people can influence how you think. And, you know, we've all seen people do the
Actually-
chicken dance on a stage with regards to stage hypnotists.
Yeah, but that's
hypnotists.
just boring stuff.
There's
Where he actually convinced someone of a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, I saw that one. That was fantastic.
So, and then
I don't think I would
convinced
even need to be
someone-
hypnotised to believe that one. I think my mindset going into it, I'd be like, yes, we're in a zombie apocalypse. Excellent. Give me a baseball bat.
Surely the next step would be to try and convince someone that they're going to die enough to be able to produce one of these spirits,
Well,
one of these apparitions.
there is a known thing called something called a tulpa, where people can create from a mind, energy build up from the mind, an image, a person.
What was it called
Look
again,
at
Kerry?
the
'Cause it
Phillips
cut out.
experiment, a tulpa. Look at the Phillips experiment. They built a person, didn't they? They built a person with a history, with a picture, with a life, and
Yes, they did.
created phenomena, allegedly, that
that's right.
came from that. So yes, the mind is an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
So is it a mind thing from the person? In regards to crisis apparitions, though, it's very specifically linked to the person. It's them basically standing in front of you.
One thing
So
I
I
was
don't
going
know.
to say.
I don't think it's the same thing. I think it's a different. I think there is a difference in this. I don't think it's a mind manipulation thing. I think it is at that point where you're that under that much trauma, whether it be through illness, through accident, through, you know, a certain, you know, in World War II, the pressure and all that under it. I do think that you can. It's not something you're aware of doing. I don't think if you was able to have actually spoken to the person before they passed, go, did you know you just visited so and so? I don't think they would necessarily even be aware of that. But
Yeah.
I do think that you possibly could do
In,
that.
in responding to what Ashley's just put in the chat room, yeah, I know it's for the show. I'm just saying, could you use those techniques to push the mind that far to create?
What I was going to say on that is there's actually a thing called the lamplighter effect, and you can actually control some. It's conditioning, but it is controlling people's thoughts and how they act and interact, and you can get them to do certain things. But it's a real thing, and it's called the lamplighter effect. There's a lamplighter, which is the person that instigates. They're basically extremely narcissistic, but there's a lamplighter and a lamplightee, and the lamplightee is the person who doesn't realise that they're getting changed. You know, when you get in a poisonous relationship and your friends say, "Oh, you've changed," and this, that, and the other. That's like that's a minor bit of the lamplighter effect. I went for a bad one of that, and I had looked it up and everything, and I went to a few meetings and stuff, and it's a real thing, and it can get extremely bad, and you can really control somebody big time.
But that's different from crisis apparition, though, isn't it? Going back to the topic, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I do agree with what you're saying, but I also think going back to the topic, a crisis apparition is different from that.
I think most crisis apparitions are, if it's on the point of death, you want to be with your loved one or the person you owe the most to. Just say thank you, goodbye, I love you, whatever. Everybody would want it. I know I'd want it. I'd want to see my kids and my missus and just say love you, thank you for being there. And I genuinely think that crisis apparition, I don't think it's telepathy, because there's cases of more than one person, rare cases, but there are documented cases of more than one person seeing the same crisis apparition at the same time. So I do think possible astral travelling, astral projection, whatever you like. But I think if there's an energy used to cause a death, energy against your energy, astral travel, goodbye.
See, I'm
So
just
why is it they don't appear at their own funeral then? Kill two birds with one stone. You can just say goodbye to everybody then, can't you?
because
the
that
energy's
initial
gone.
point of death, has passed. At the point of the funeral, that's like a week,
Yeah,
2
but
weeks later.
in one of in one of your examples, you said that it was 9 hours after the event. So you could have a period of time where there's nothing. So you might as well just wait to the funeral and then use all your energy then, just say goodbye to everybody.
But a crisis apparition tends to happen in a short time before and a short time afterwards. As she actually put, I believe it's 12 hours. Other instances of post-death visitations, do tend to happen within the first 6 weeks post-death, and then it starts to fade off and tends to end, not always, there are other cases, but tends to end after a year. Cal Cooper has done a lot of studying on this and has got a lot of data, I suppose the word is, on this particular subject. But we're actually focusing on crisis apparition, which is literally that traumatic point before.
There are pre-death apparitions, because I can remember a few occasions when my ex-mother-in-law walking through the door, and I can remember saying to my ex, "My God, that looks like it should be dead." But definitely.
Oh my goodness! And Ashley has brought up an interesting point into the chat room. Let's have a little look at this one. Could crisis apparitions be precognitive recognition of the person passing and the mind beginning the healing process for something they have yet to be advised of? I don't think that would be at this particular instance in regard to crisis apparitions. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of the cases, the person isn't on the mind.
Yeah.
So it's not sort of your immediate concerns. That person is not like foremost front of your mind. I know precog is not really about that, but in regards to actually witnessing what you believe is a person in front of you talking to you and you having that real life experience, regardless of whether that experience is a telepathic interaction or whether or not that person is actually stood in front of you, that's why I don't think that's coming from the person it's happened to. A precog will happen to the person it's happening to, not a distant person then projecting on. It's almost like the person who's going through the trauma is the one doing the projection, or we'll use the word projection, whether it be telepathic or whether it be your soul's left your body and popped along to so-and-so to say hi. Do you know what I mean? So we'll call it that. So do you see what I mean? So I don't think it's a precog thing.
It's almost
there are cases of precog when people have sat there and gone, "Oh my God, something really bad is happening to so and so." That's different from a crisis apparition. A precog, I won't get on that plane. I think that there's something bad going to happen to that plane. You don't get on the plane crashes. That I would class as a precog, but I don't think in regards to crisis apparition, it's actually a precognitive recognition of the person passing. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that.
Here's another one to throw out there. If it's energy, if a lot of the crisis apparitions are energy based, is it like it's going to sound stupid, but is it like a recording that you unwittingly have in your head that you don't know about, so that when you go poof, and there's enough energy to push it out there?
Oh, now there's a thought. Oh, Paul, are you okay?
Paul,
You've gone Darth Vader-y.
I didn't say anything.
Ooh. Oh, that was weird. We had Darth Vader in the room for a second there. I don't know, because a lot of the times it happens a couple of hours before death.
Well, it's just an idea. I mean, because there are a lot of things that we don't know about. Our brain isn't. We don't know what our brain's used for. Like our DNA. There's loads of that that's still locked up. We don't know what it's used for. So you might unwittingly have a record function, in there, and some people can use it, some people can't. With it, without actually knowing they're doing it.
Yeah.
So that's one. I see we still got Darth Vader.
I know. It sounds like he's...
Why is Paul heavy breathing down the microphone after you did that voice?
What voice?
When you did the voice on the thing earlier. I mean, is Paul having a session with some hand cream, some tissues?
That's a delayed reaction, surely. That's a delayed reaction, surely. I mean, come on. Usually I have a more immediate effect than that, but, just saying. I can say is that phone bill would have been a lot of money. I would have been raking it in.
Just
Right.
say Dalek in a very, very subtle voice.
Who, me?
Yeah, just say Dalek to say Paul. Daleks.
Daleks.
There you go, Paul.
I will exterminate you.
Yep, that's it. He's going. Yep.
Oh, dear.
Oh my god. Anyway, the point you made, I think. Oh, see, it's a tricky one to pin down, isn't it?
It's just a random thought I had. I can be controversial and brainy sometimes, and not just sit here and go aliens and be the stooge. I've got to brain on me something.
We've actually
But
brought a topic to the table where you wasn't able to find an alien link. I would just like to point that out.
Well, it could be. I mean, you could have had an anal probe, and they could be zapping stuff for you, so you can come out of your body and go, "Ha! Fooled you, or told you it was real," and that was it. But you don't know. So
Not an actual case study, though. I don't think so.
no, but I still managed to say aliens twice now. So
Oh my god, everybody!
That's for the third time.
Yeah, I was going to say you can't manage to get through an hour without saying it. I'm telling you now.
back to the topic in hand, because
Yeah.
we don't know what all our brain can do and all the brain power and this, that, and the other, because we only use a certain percentage of it. Who's to say that another percent of that isn't used to back things up for crisis things? Who's to say another bit of it isn't to boost a crisis apparition and another bit's for the recording or things like that?
I honestly don't know. All I know is that if you was in that much trauma, whether that be through illness or whether that be through a circumstance, it is a very strange one. I'm being mind-boggled. I'm mind-boggled. I am actually mind-boggled. Yeah, so I would actually say it's more I think it's either a telepathic interaction or it's an astral travel. Oh, hello, we've got a cat in the room.
Told you I'm a pussy magnet.
I've been thinking it was jumping on your back all night, to be fair, because it's been on the shelf above you. The cat, that is, everybody. There is a cat. There is Mark has a shelf above him, and this cat has been wandering up and down, and all night I've been waiting for it to, like, leap off and land on his back.
I've got a dog beside me here as well, see?
I personally would think it's more those two things rather than anything else. But it is very true. Not an astral cat, it's a real cat. I would say that I find the whole topic incredibly fascinating.
I'd actually like us to do a show on brain powers, telekinesis, psychokinesis, the CIA tapes of Mars and everything, all that sort of thing.
Hold on. Oh, let's just rewind that just one little bit. Sorry? What was the last thing you said?
The CIA recorded tapes where they used somebody who's claimed that they could astral project and see other planets and stuff, and they did it in the 70s and 80s, and they were showing Mars and reporting on Mars from millions of years ago. I've actually got the transcript of one of those sessions.
Well, there is a topic for a Friday night, I do feel, coming up on that one.
It's got everything everybody loves in there. Aliens, controversy,
conspiracy. Huge amount of conspiracy, I feel, coming on in that one.
That's right, Riddler. Remote viewing. That's the one. But we could do a show on that and ESP, psychokinesis, telekinesis, all that sort of thing.
I think actually you'd have to break it down over 3 or 4 shows, because remote viewing is a huge subject all by itself. ESP is another huge topic all by itself. Superpowers, another huge topic.
You'd have to do the CIA tapes.
Seriously,
at the end,
and bollocks, says Andy M.
disappear.
It's a Friday night show, Andy M. I really don't know what you expect when you come on a Friday. Anyway, Paul, tell us about the competition we've got going on the Parasearch Radio group page at the moment.
Oh, you could be the lucky winners of 2 tickets to Shepton Mallet Prison on the 6th of April this year. What have they got to do to enter, Kerry?
They've got to go over to the Parasearch Radio group page on Facebook, comment your name. If you're really lovely, you'll send us an email and let us know how we can get in contact with you in another way other than Facebook, which would be awesome. If you love us that much, you will share the post out. All the terms and conditions are on the post. So, yes, guys, go over to the Parasearch Radio Facebook group page. Like the page, obviously. That way you'll get able to enter the competition. And, see all the details. But Shepton Mallet Prison, 2 tickets available for the 6th of April. All you have to do is comment your name.
If you want to know all about the history, then go and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show and listen to Kerry's fanfare. That's all I can say.
That'll be a good night by all.
That was a fanfare. I tell you, I'd worked hard on that fanfare. I had to get my trumpet out and everything.
That was awesome.
It was awesome.
See, now we all know what happens when you get your trumpet out, but that normally involves you being drunk and a traffic cone, so let's just not go there.
Now,
she was very drunk.
Now, great show tonight, guys. I have to say, we covered some topics there, didn't we? Now, on Sunday evening on the Spirit Dimension show, what do you think? Do you think that hauntings can happen at specific times and days, so we could turn up and, apparition would just a ghost would happily perform for us at a certain time, certain day?
If it's stone tape theory, then yeah.
No.
Not on stone tape theory.
No.
No, the amount of people that come up to me and go, I've got a ghost in my house, I want you to come investigate. When I say to them, write a log, give me times and dates of when it happens, you never hear from them again. No, it don't happen.
Well, I was thinking more like battlefields and stuff like that.
I'm not always in a battlefield, so I wouldn't really want to know.
Certain dates
I'd have to go and
times.
visit, live in a battlefield for a year and see what comes up.
Well, I'm talking to an author on Sunday night called Ruth Roper Wilder. God, it's because my son's called Ryder. Ruth Roper Wilder, who has written a book on this very topic. Not only that, she has written many, many books on hauntings and great ghost stories. She's a fascinating lady, really lovely. We've got her in the studio on Sunday evening, kicking off at 9 p.m. Now, Monday evening, this is a thing that I now have to do because I've set a standard for myself, so I now do it. On a Monday evening or late afternoon, I go live on the group page to tell you what's coming up for the rest of the week on Parasearch Radio. So check that out. And then you get to see me wave my hands around like I just don't care. And talk about all the shows and guests we've got coming up for next week on Parasearch Radio. On that note, guys, we're actually finishing on time for a change. How's that for
you? I was just about to say, you do like to rock out with your socks out, don't you?
I do like to rock out with my socks out.
They're not socks, believe.
More like suspenders and tights. Anyway, on that note.
Oh, dear God.
Anyway, on that note, guys, thank you so much for joining us in the chat room. It's been an absolute pleasure watching your comments flow past, and we hope we covered a well-rounded topic for you on a Friday night. And on that note, we say good night, and say good night, laddios.
Good night, laddios.
Good night, laddios.
Oh, laddios.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you during the week. Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.